Hi, my name is Brandon Brana. I'm the CEO and founder of Lifecycle Transitions. We're a transition company that works with clients that are in transition. We've been in business over 11 years and we've done over 578 transitions. This is one of our clients that was involved in our home rescue program. I'd like to introduce Mary.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Mary was involved in one of our transitions for her aunt, Rosemary.
Yes.
And go ahead. I'd like you to sort of talk a little bit about your experience with your aunt and how this whole ordeal came about.
Sure, absolutely. So my aunt is an elderly woman who we knew forever had been a hoarder. She fell right after Christmas and was in the hospital, and when one of the family members went over to check on her, to get some things for her and check on her home, the Board of Health had put a letter up saying the home was condemned.
How long has she been dealing with the hoarding?
So I would say it's gotten progressively worse, but it's been decades. The last time I saw the floors cleaned in that place was 1997 when her husband passed away. And she renovated the place. And
so just a question, Rosemary is your father or your mother's?
She's my aunt and she's my mother's sister.
Okay, so did your mom initially deal with her in the beginning stages in 97, or was it you were involved from a male's side?
So my mom, in 97, my mom was the one who helped her to, clean out, pack up, renovate, hire the people to do the work, things like that. My mom has helped her sister a lot through the years.
What was your experience with your mom when you dealt with her in 97? How did your mom deal with it?
How does my mom deal with that?
Well, when your mom initially dealt with the situation for the first time in 97, when your aunt's husband passed away, was your aunt going through a grieving process?
Yeah, my aunt, after her husband passed away, and he was considerably older than her, but when he passed away, she lived with my parents for about 6 months. They went through this process of cleaning out and just kind of keeping her company, so she wasn't alone. But she did get the condo cleaned out and cleaned up and packed up and put away. And my mom's a worker bee, just like me. Like my mom is like this, get everything done, go get her kind of person. Now, over the years, my aunt would get very angry at my mom when she suggested that she work on the home.
Was your aunt like that as a kid growing up with your mom? Did your mom have any experiences as children growing up in the same house?
I mean, only that my mom was the worker bee, and my aunt, wasn't so much. She cleaning a home and making meals for herself and cleaning up just isn't something my aunt's interested in.
Did hoarding ever exhibit itself in anybody in the family?
No, we're our side of the family is like anti-hoarders.
Really?
Yeah. We're very clean and neat and get rid of things and give to other people, and it definitely is not a disease that we had or any of us have.
Okay.
But as I said, we knew this would come down. We just didn't know when or how. Anytime a suggestion had been made to help her clean out, to hire a plumber, so there was a bigger issue. And so not only was the house full of hoard, but there was no working toilet.
Now, when was she in the hospital? Is this recently?
The very end of December, right before we brought your team in to do this work. So when the Board of Health had put that note on the door, my mom had called the City of Marlboro Board of Health, and they gave us your name.
Now, when I met your mom for the first time, it wasn't unusual or surprising that she was guarded. Most of the time I walk into these situations, the family's very can I trust this person? Is this person going to be judgmental? And initially, I think she was kind of she was polite and very, very cordial and nice, but I think she was kind of leery.
She's Irish.
Yeah. She was kind of leery initially. But after building some rapport with her and asking key questions, I wanted to get an idea as to what her long-term and short-term plan was. Because initially, I think we went in with the game plan of, okay, let's get this place cleaned up, get the Board of Health out of the picture.
Yep, absolutely.
When you got the notification from the Board of Health, you said it wasn't a surprise. You expected this situation to sort of...
Well, we knew that this would be exposed at some point, but we didn't know. We knew that the hoarding would have to be dealt with. It was a question, would it be dealt with after her death? Would it be dealt with? How was it going to happen?
Was she allowing people into the
Never.
home?
I never. Yeah. Not for well over a decade, if not
really?
more. Yeah. No,
so when you came over to pick her up, she would meet you on a corner?
Yeah, I would pull in to pick her up to go to dinner, birthday, anniversary, whatever it may be, and she would come out and meet us.
When when did you get the notification from the Board of Health? Was it when she was in the hospital?
Yeah, yes.
So at that point, did she let you know begrudgingly? Was she like, I think I got an issue?
No, it was the other family member who had gone to her home to pick up a few key things, like her pocketbook, her wallet, whatever it was, things she didn't have. And she called, the other niece called my mom and said, there's a letter, a note on the door. And so my mom called me and my sister and said, I don't know what I'm going to do.
So Mary, who confronted your aunt with the fact that this secret had been exposed?
Me.
And how was that conversation?
I tried to be honest and direct because she's honest and direct. But I tried to be respectful of the fact that this is clearly a disease.
Right.
And that it was her doing, but that, she does have some mental illness. And that I didn't want to be disrespectful, even though I had to be tough. And I had to tell her, I got your estimate, and then I spoke to you guys, and then, I spoke to LaVie, and she was so understanding and shared her own experience about her mom. And I didn't know your company from a hole in the wall, but I went on the website and I read the presentation of the estimate that you provided and all that was involved. And as you just said, I didn't know this was going to be a transition. I thought this was a situation that was, we're going to clean it out, we're going to get it up to the place where you can move back into, and she's going to move back in, and you'll kind of set it up for her, but kind of get rid of anything that was trash, anything that was broken, soiled, dirty. Okay. And so that was really all that I knew. Yeah. And I am the executor for will. She doesn't have children.
So how did that become? How did you end up getting involved in stepping up to the plate? Because you really took a lot of responsibility for your aunt. Yeah.
So the truth is that many moons ago, my aunt paid for my wedding reception.
Wow. What did your aunt do for work?
My aunt had a pretty high job in the state of Massachusetts.
Really?
Yeah, she was the deputy director of the Massachusetts Environmental Protection Agency, the Department of Environmental Protection. She had a really good job, and I'm grateful because even though she couldn't keep a house and she couldn't clean or cook, she was good with money. Well, so I've paid her bills since January. I've been paying her bills since this happened. I have taken over everything. But when I was in my 20s, my mid-20s, she said to me, she didn't have children and she wasn't going to have any, and she said, "Will you be the executor of my will?" And I'm 20-something years old. I don't know what that's about. I'm like, yeah, sure. I was like a responsible person. I was like, of course, sure. Right. So I'm her healthcare proxy. I'm the the durable power of attorney, the executor for will, and...
So 20 years, you had no issues, it sounds like.
So yeah, I'm on her checking account. She was financially very smart. Okay. Very smart, very well aligned, and actually because of that, we were able to hire you. Right. If there was no money, we wouldn't have been able to hire any company. Well,
just to interject briefly on that, two things. One, it's funny that most of our general audience often thinks because a person suffers from hoarding that they can't hold a job, that they're not professional, that they're not educated. Hoarding has obviously no boundaries. It is a mental illness. Yeah. And I think more people are surprised than not when they realize that this is a fully functional person who holds a job, holds a career, well educated, and then yet they hold this secret behind closed doors that comes out in a different form. And a lot of times it could be an administrator, it can be a person who's really type A organized, but yet when they come home, all of those things tend to sort of diminish.
Right. And it was important to her. So it's a condo that this happened in, and it was important to her that the Board of Trustees didn't find out. She was a member of the Board of Trustees for 34 years in that place. And she had responsibilities, and they held her in regard for her professionalism and for who she was and for what she did for the group and the building, etc. So I always try to remember that she may not be strong in this area, but she's strong in other areas. And I think that's a place where people can speak down to someone who's mentally ill. Absolutely. Is that they can say, they can think everything is bad because one thing is bad. And I'm not that kind of person with anybody. Right. So the other thing is that if my mom were to take this on, because my mother is the closest person to my aunt, she can be abusive to my mother.
Really?
I'm much stronger.
You just sort of put the stake in the ground. Yeah. Look, we're going to have this conversation.
And the stake in the ground isn't caught up in emotion. Right. It's a business. I'm a graphic designer. I'm a project manager. I manage websites and clients and have for 25 years. So in some cases, some of this has to be out of love and some of this has to be a business project.
Yeah. I had the opportunity of meeting you and your aunt together, and and I can tell your relationship. I mean, everything you said was definitely coming from a loving place, but she respected you. And that's usually, when I interact with people, I look at those relationships, and it's funny, there's one relationship that from one person to another, then another person comes in the room, and that hoarder, or the person who's suffering from hoarding rather, can shut down.
Right.
Because at some point, their relationship is more adversarial.
Yeah.
I didn't see that from you guys.
Right.
How do you accredit that? I mean, what do you accredit to keeping a really good relationship with her, but being firm?
I don't know. I mean, I really don't. I know that sounds crazy, but I respect her, and I set my boundaries with her. And I have for many years. And, I think she thought that she paid for my wedding, and then I was going to be her, servant.
For life.
And that was not the case. I went on and got married and had a child and got divorced, and, and there are many times that she told me she had negative things to say about me to me. And I had, enough gumption to say, you know what, you're not going to say that about me. It's not true. So I think when someone is sets strong boundaries, she can respect it. If someone is weaker because they're more emotional, she'll use that as a power thing. That's my opinion. It's only my opinion. But in this case, I knew that my mother was in a situation where, one, I didn't want her exposed to COVID. I had just had COVID, and my immunity is still at its highest. So I was like, okay, I guess for some reason things happen in a way you don't expect them, because I certainly didn't want it. And I guess now's the time, because now I have to bring her to assisted livings and I have to figure this out. But the biggest thing that happened was it was exposed. She couldn't go home, but I also found out that she couldn't see. And so what had happened was her eyesight, she was a person who drove, and her eyesight had failed very, very quickly. From December, like around middle of 1st of December, she had gone to the eye doctor, and they basically said, you have cataracts. But the reality is she can't see.
Wow.
So she couldn't drive. She couldn't dial a phone. She couldn't read me a credit card number. She couldn't, she couldn't do anything for herself.
Right.
And there was no other option. She really couldn't do anything for herself.
She's like a sitting duck almost.
Right. So it was about getting her to a safe place. And through that time, not only did I realize she couldn't see because of the cataracts, because I was her healthcare proxy, I was the one who could call the eye doctor. I was the one people would communicate with me because I had that, she had turned that over to me. She had set herself up properly. In that time, I realized that I saw pictures of what you guys were seeing. You sent me videos.
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, she's a smoker. She's sitting in a chair surrounded by cigarette butts and soda bottles.
Right.
She's not eating. She's not preparing food. If she can't drive, she's not going out to breakfast like she did every day, or the normal things that she would do. The reason she ended up falling was because of a potassium problem. It was a medical problem.
Really?
Yeah, and it was a vitamin issue, and so she didn't have any potassium. It's a thing. It has a name. And so it was because she wasn't eating.
So you're thinking about, so at this point, we agreed to go into the home.
Yep.
And we were thinking, let's get the house cleaned up. In this business, we get the call because something happens, something's going to happen, or something needs to happen. Most of the time, it's reactionary. So we were thinking, you were thinking, the family was thinking, let's get the house cleaned up, and then we'll go to the next step.
Yep.
But for right now, let's get the home cleaned.
Right.
And I think that's what
and you said to me, we have these programs, and I'm thinking, it doesn't matter to me that you have these programs. I wasn't even taking them in. When you're in a trauma situation and you're only dealing with the little bit of information you can handle in that moment.
Right.
And so I was thinking, we just got to get her back into the house. We just have to get it cleaned up and get her back into it and blah, blah, blah. But it was very apparent to me that with her situation, she needed more care, and that going home wasn't actually the best thing for her.
Because when we first came in, we estimated to get the place cleaned up, it was going to be a 7 to 8 day time period. And as a transition expert, I usually try to think 3-4 steps ahead. Because for me, it's all about sustainability. How to avoid throwing good money at bad money, but also wasting good effort on poor results. I didn't know your aunt well. At that point, I don't think I met her.
Sure, that's right.
I think I was only hearing from you and your mom at what happened, but like I always tell clients, you learn more from a person from their home than any other facet of their life. Your home tells you how much time you spend in a specific room, where you sleep, where you eat, and working in this environment, this very intimate environment for all of us. And as we were going into different rooms, we began to sort of see how she lived her life. You know, where she was spending her time, you know, and then we begin to, as we were cleaning out the refrigerator, we see your diet. You know, there's so many different things that tell you, that the home tells you. And as we got to day 2 and day 3, I think we were updating you. Like,
you were great about, you would call and say, we made an agreement at the beginning. The communication was great, right? We made an agreement from the beginning. Anything that was trash obviously would go. Anything that was soiled, anything that was ripped, anything that was too far gone, broken, all had to go. And I had to be the one to say to her, these are the rules.
She had a lot of rules initially, right?
And also that she couldn't be part of the process.
But did she have a lot of rules though? Because it sounded like she was giving your mom a lot of orders on what she wanted to keep and not discard, right?
Well, I think I was asked for some things by you guys. And then it was, you know, because my aunt was a big collector. So there was the Nutcracker collection and the Crinkle Claws collection, and she collects pigs, and, you know, wanting to make sure that those things were safe. And then I think the only thing she asked my mom for was some basics, like things like a winter coat, certain things she needed, because when she went in the hospital, in the ambulance, she had not even clothes.
How was her mindset at this point? Was she thinking clearly, making sound decisions? Did you have any concerns about her cognitively at this point?
When I had conversations with her that were tough, but they were based in fact, and they were based in the reality of the situation based on the choices she had made, she handled them fine. So cognitively, I didn't have any issues.
Was she reasonable, you think, with some of her requests? But keeping certain things, or because you know, in this business,
I had to say no a lot. I had to redirect a lot.
What were some of the things that you thought? When you put that stake in the ground? What were some of the things that you were like, look, we're not doing that?
She wanted to have an estate company come in and look at everything to figure out what they were going to buy and sell, and you know, give her a commission on. She wanted some family member, I refused immediately, to like set up an eBay page and sell items individually. When you have to make big decisions and you have to make them quick, those are not options. You know, there were compromises. I have boxes of Santa Clauses and boxes of Nutcrackers in my garage. I said that I would not, it made her feel better to know that I would not give away family photos. That we would not throw anything away. And so I have boxes and boxes of photos.
So for us, it's like a tightrope, but I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you didn't.
You know, but it's like a tightrope for us between making sure we follow their every wish, you know, concisely, you know, making sure that every single thing that they want to keep, that means a lot to them, because from the outside, usually the family members, they tend to discredit or devalue some of the things that the people want. I don't think that was the case with you. But for all of our sakes, I think we were all sort of trying to balance, you know, her expectations and get the job done.
Well, I was definitely in a place of trying to balance her, not pushing her into a bipolar episode. I actually was impressed that when I would say things like, you have this entire collection of ceramics from 1978, do you need it? No. She was pretty good. You know, she was pretty good. The things she wanted. Oddly enough, for someone who had lived in such a mess, she knew very clearly where her diamond ring was, where this was, where that was. I mean, before you guys even came in, she was like, get those items. And so I was pretty impressed that she knew where some items were. But I was also impressed that when presented with the opportunity to have them donated, she was okay with it. And I always used the word donate. And I would say to your team, I don't care if it has to be thrown away. I mean, this woman smoked in the house for 30 years. I mean, the smoke was a problem. A lot of things can't be donated because they're ruined by smoke and things like that, furniture, etc. And so I would say to you, however it has to be handled outside of this conversation is fine. To her, everything was donated because she is a generous person, because she does have a generous heart, and because so I just had to trust. And I think the biggest thing for me with your company was that I was so overwhelmed. I work a full-time job. I have a 13-year-old at home. I just bought my own house in October. I'm still unpacking, and I'm working from home. I have a 13-year-old doing remote learning who's in 7th grade, so that's a challenge. And I'm a single mom. And so I was very lucky that my ex-husband stepped up and has spent more time with his son and, you know, with my son, so that I could be gone more. to, you know, taking days off work to go through this process with her, etc. But what I put my blind faith and trust in your company, you know, and you absolutely, without question, came through.
Thank you.
You know, and as I said the whole time how grateful I was. The team was great. They were positive. They did what they said. You did what you said you were going to do from the beginning to the end, and I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
I have to say, had I known your company existed, maybe, just maybe, we could have introduced it to her before,
Earlier,
and
yeah.
she could have gone through this process.
Right.
I don't know, because the tough love, it's been a lot of tough love.
Walk me back when we came to the point where we got the cleanup done, and you know, clothes were laundered, items were donated, items were discarded. We had the place in return mode, you know, where she can come from the hotel back to the home. We had already scheduled up the appointments for the Board of Health to come in and do a final inspection. But now we were on the rebuild. And now it was like, look, you know, we have a person that's going to require a number of different resources in order for her to be able to come here and stay in the home. We needed to get the plumbing done. We needed to address the flooring. We needed to address the painting of 30 years of accumulated smoking in the apartment, or the condo rather. And we presented the rebuild, because it's at the second stage, once the cleanup's done, all these other pieces, we were going to rebuild the place. And we presented that proposal to you. You don't have to go into the details of it, but you know, the third option was also there, and that was the home rescue program. So we're at the crossroad where you now have to make a decision on whether you address the repairs. What did you decide to do?
As an elderly person, now on a walker, there are a number of things that have to happen to the home to make it safe and livable.
Right.
And you presented me with the amount of money that would be. But once I saw that amount of money wasn't sitting there in cash.
Right.
There was money sitting in cash, and she had done really well, but that was a level of commitment that was bigger. Not that she could do, but it was apparent to me over the weeks of work being with her that she needed more care.
So sustainability became an issue at that point.
She needed a safe place to be. She couldn't prepare her own meals. That if she had gone, and also one of the things she said about being in the hotel, of this extended stay hotel, was that she liked that she could sit on a bench and see people. Well, at 72 years old, when you can't drive,
Right.
you live alone, you don't see anybody.
Right.
Except the neighbors maybe in the condo building every once in a while.
Life's
But it was
limiting.
a very isolated life.
Right.
So she couldn't drive, she couldn't make any meals and feed herself. Not that she couldn't, she wouldn't. She wasn't going to clean the place. She wasn't going to change and pick up after herself. Those things were simply not going to change. And I had to have the really tough conversation with her that I thought that she would, no matter how many years she had left in her life, that I would rather have her enjoy them.
Right.
And be safe and be able to see people and go for a walk. She likes to walk, and she's a good walker. It's good for her health. And that it would be best if she made this change.
So now we have an opportunity. And this opportunity, like I tell people all the time, opportunity doesn't always come in a nicely gift wrap box. It usually comes in a form of a challenge, a hurdle, and a lot of times it's the family's one and only time to really encourage a decision that they may have been thinking months, if not years ago, like in your case with your aunt, knowing that, hey, you know, she has these illnesses, she has these limitations, you know, she has all these problems that are illuminating and starting to show their face. But it's hard to preface this conversation with her. But now the opportunity in a form like this is now presented itself. What were you thinking emotionally, mentally? What was going through your mind emotionally?
I just knew through this whole process that I could only present little bits of information at a time, and I had to go with my gut. So if I were presented with an opportunity to have a conversation, I would open the door. If she opened the window, I would open the door. And she cared about the business of it. Where are we with this? Has this been have a place that you don't have to clean up, that family can come and visit you? So wouldn't it be nice to visit more people, because you can visit with them in the open spaces of a place? And we will look at, and one of the things that was also helpful was she had helped a friend of hers a number of years ago get rid of her house and move into an independent living. And she was very focused on that. Remember, she was like,
Yeah, she was
that was the
passionate.
bar,
Yeah, she was
that was the
passionate,
place that she wanted to be, and that was the place that she was going to hold everything to
Right.
that bar. The issue with that place is that it's unclear that her long-term care insurance would have worked there. And that she actually needs more help than that place provided.
Right.
Also, it's far away. So it's farther away, closer to my house, but farther away from the majority of the people that support her and me. So
Okay.
I actually needed her to be in a place where more people could help. That's important as a family member. It can't be all on me.
So the options at that point was you were thinking assisted independent living. Were you thinking that at that point?
So we were, well, that's really where another place where your team really came in. And you said, you came to me when I basically said, I think she needs to find an assisted living and she's open to it. You said, okay. And I guess I didn't realize you went to this plan of the transition, the home rescue, but you did. And you said, you came to me with an offer on the condo, a cash offer, and you said it includes this. And that was when we met with her.
Right.
So then we went and we met with her, so because she wanted to feel okay about you, about
The
who
process,
this
yeah.
company was, and that was going through her stuff, and
Right.
and her money and et cetera. And we went through, and she gave you opinions about what she wanted.
Oh, she was very specific. I
I'm
saw
sure she
exactly
was.
what you were talking about.
Yes, yeah, she's a tough cookie.
It's hard for people on the outside to visualize a company that came in from a cleanup standpoint, and to get to a point where we're now talking about transacting,
Right.
the actual business of moving a piece of real estate. And then, and while this is happening, let's look at assisted livings. Let's transition. Let's find a place that she can call home.
Right.
So we got two different things that we're trying to consolidate. We're trying to consolidate the idea of an offer, that makes sense for her, based on, the condition of the home. And then we're looking at, in order for us to do that, we got to have a place for her to move to. So would you say that they both had to happen hand in hand? Even if the offer in the house was what she wanted, if we can find a place for her, there was no chance she was going to leave that place. Would you agree? Unless she was going to stay with you.
I have to be honest. She's not staying with me. I have to be honest. I don't know where she would have gone. I don't know what would have happened. I couldn't even exercise those thoughts.
Let me ask you a better question. How much longer do you think she would have been able to stay in the condo by herself with her health and everything else that's going on?
I'll go with 6 months as my best guess. And I think probably what would have happened is that she would have fallen, and the place that she ended up would not have been an assisted living but a nursing home.
Right.
And nobody wanted to go. That's like so
That's like
scary,
taboo.
right? Like that's so scary for her too, especially where physically she struggles, but cognitively she's, especially with the things she's good at, she's always focused on those. She's completely ignored, but she's focused on the things that she's good at. And so, and I think it is a tough transition because this company's going to clean out the hoarding part, and then boom, suddenly they're a resource for all these other things, and you don't even know them. How do you trust them?
How do you trust them, right?
And I said, I don't have any choice. I'm one person, and I work a full-time job, and I'm, on deadline, and I have a kid who's not showing up to math class while he's in the home, and I'm also worried. I'm worried about my aunt. I'm worried she's gonna fall. Like she needs to be getting meals, and she's, so you kick into survival mode.
So do you think you rolled the dice a little bit and took a chance?
I absolutely did. I did some research. I did my best Google search. I called an attorney that, I knew. I talked to a friend who, is an attorney, but I also really went with my gut. I really went with my gut, and I was like, I don't know how this is going to end up. But from a project management standpoint, I can keep anybody on task. So I would send emails if I felt like I didn't know, we hadn't touched base. I would check in on everything.
You were on top.
And so, but I so appreciated, if you guys needed more time, or if, Livia and I became friendly about our lives, and that's who I am. And I always want to extend that level of kindness to everyone. And also I felt, there is the part that she can't do that. She doesn't extend that level of kindness. She's not well.
She's pretty.
And so I think, but outlined all of the things that were included in the process of the transition, right? So there were the 3 additional storage units nobody knew about, well, you guys didn't know about, because she didn't need those cleaned out in order to move back into her condo.
Right.
And so, you know, there were the 3 additional storage units, there was the legal fees, there were the elder attorney fee to review the long-term care plan.
Right.
There's some things that were specific to her and to her needs that you included, that I know, I'm a business person too, I know the value of those things. I just bought a house. I know how much it costs to do the closing and to do this and to do that. And I will tell you that through the entire process, everyone has been fantastic. Your lawyer, the paralegal, the gentleman I met for the closing, everyone has had a good heart, good humor. You know, the clean out day that we, you know, had to go through all these boxes and things like that, and the moving the furniture and getting everything set up, and you know, helping her try on clothes to see what we could get rid of and what she wanted to keep and what she didn't, things like that. You know, it was a team.
Right.
You know, I felt like I was part of your team on those days.
Well, we felt like you were too.
And it was, I mean, it was just, I don't know how I would, you know, and as much as she's in a safe place now, she's in an assisted living, she's not.
Let's talk about where she.
Oh, right, because we didn't talk about the process of assisted living. So one of the things you did for me was you did the research. You called the assisted livings. You made tours, appointments for tours for me, or for me to take her. So we went and saw 3 places. There was a 4th place. You looked at her long-term care plan to make sure there were places she could go to. You told me that where there were concerns. This may not work because of X. And
we looked at the finances to see what she can actually financially can afford. And what was the number 1, 3 deciding factors in the place she chose?
I would say it was one factor, and it was, she only admits to one.
Okay.
The one, it was that it was financial. When we
all
went
about
in,
numbers.
when we went in and
for
met
her,
the,
that's kind of.
That's right.
Yeah.
When we went in with the admissions person, and the admissions person saw that she had a pension from the state of Massachusetts and a long-term care plan, which nobody has, she said, you can live the rest of your life here. I go to the assisted living, and after 3 days, it's a mess. And I go in, and I know now I have to do my part to clean, and I have to, but there is the possibility that she'll let you guys in a couple of times a year to help her, maybe every quarter or something like that. I haven't needed to talk to you about it because we're not there yet.
Yeah.
But to keep a relationship with her, because, and I said to her, I said, I would rather just be your niece.
Right.
I would rather not have to argue with you about what to donate.
Right.
I'd rather get help with that.
Well, see, and that's the benefit of an outside party, is it allows for the relationship to remain the relationship that it should have been, the niece and the aunt. Having an outside party that goes there to focus on certain specific tasks, and I mean along the way you build a relationship and it's personalized and they feel like an extension of the family because you see them routinely and regularly. You and I, we talked about a care plan. And I think we're still going to work through that care plan where now that she's in the assisted living, that we can send someone there maybe once every 2 weeks, once a month. I don't know if, twice a year will probably be the best plan, only because there's outlines and rules and regulations in a lot of these community living environments, and they do routine and regular inspections. So if they get a glimpse that certain things are out of whack or a little off-putting from their standards, then we want to be on top of that rather than be reactionary. So we want to be a little more proactive. Which we're going to make that the next move. I mean, I think it's definitely at the point where we should sit down with her and figure out if 1 or 2 hours every 2-3 weeks is enough. And if it's not, then we put these little critical indicators in place to know that we need to do more or do less until we can get her to a point. Because like you said before, let's not sugarcoat this. Hoarding is something that doesn't go away. It's a mental health issue. It's an issue that millions of people are plagued with and dealing with every single day. And it has a high recidivism rate. And the reason we came about as life cycle transitions is because we were looking more long-term rather than short-term. And we were looking at the transition, but also the sustainability of how people are living and how we can make certain adjustments that can make the living environment more durable. Because when there's no functionality, when there's clutter, there's no functionality. And the functionality of how your aunt was living independently was very minimal.
Well, and it's funny because what I want people to know is that when we were cleaning out those boxes and we were going through things, we found endless books
Yeah.
on organizing,
Yeah.
on how to clean anything, on how to keep a tidy home. She knew. She knew she needed help, but how hard it is to be vulnerable enough to let someone into your home when you have a non-working toilet and you have you don't cook and you've just collected everything, and it's not that she couldn't let it go if someone else's hands would throw it away, but that and when you push too far, it's that fine line of I ask one too many questions or I take one too many plates and I get
you back,
you get the anger.
But let's be honest though, when you think of a personality of someone who is less likely to take direction or constructive advice, who is that going to be? It's going to be someone like your aunt, someone who in their professional life was on top of things. She was the go-to. She was the head of the organization.
Absolutely, she had people working for her, and I will tell you that I made the decision after a number of days, a week or so, and I went to her and I said, okay, I heard you that you want to go back. I said, I will take you back. I said, I have protected you from it so you didn't have an episode. So I said, I've done everything I can do. If it's that important to you to go back, I will take you back. You can choose the items, your favorite items for yourself that you want. I said, but if it causes you to have an anxiety attack, do not take it out on me. I am absolutely not going to stand for it. So we went, and she sat in a chair in the window with a flashlight because she has such a hard time seeing, and she looked at each nutcracker and she chose the ones, and she looked at each, and she asked me a lot of questions, and she asked me a lot of, where's this and where's that? I don't know. We'll find it through the process or we won't. And so it was tough. I mean, I have to say, showing up every day for this process was incredibly difficult. And it was emotional and it was exhausting. And then I would go home after spending 3 or 4 hours every day for 2 months on her life. I would work all night. I would work and I'd design logos and websites, and I would be working all night. I would have to buy takeout for my kid or whatever, all this extra cost for me, all these extra expenses that I don't have budgeted in. It's no joke for the family.
No, absolutely. All right, so we're at the end of the process at this point. We went from the initial part of the cleanup. We figured out what items are going to be discarded, what items are going to be kept. We donated items. We relocated items to you. We presented a proposal for the cleanup, and then we introduced the home rescue program where we'll find you an assisted living, move your aunt into the assisted living and get the property sold. And you elected at that point to do option 3, home rescue. All right, so the home rescue was done. We're in the process. You were in communication with our legal team. How was the legal team during this process?
Fantastic. You did everything you said you were going to do for my aunt, for me as the business person managing her life.
Thank you.
Your team did, you did everything. The law firm was fantastic. They were on time, they were efficient, they were kind, they were smart. It was easy.
Wow.
It was easy. That wrap up of the process of selling the condo for exactly what you said, and also doing all the items that you said you would do to help me, you did.
Done. So the assisted living, she chose the right one at this point. It was a local one that was close in proximity to you. She's been physically moved into the assisted living.
Yes.
So so the move was a twofold move. It was a move moving her from the hotel that she was currently staying in.
Yes.
As well as moving her from the remaining final items from her home, and then moving some of those items temporarily into your garage where she wanted to keep some. And you obviously had got your work set with getting rid of some of the remaining items and selling them.
I think it's the reality of people downsizing. It's the reality of someone downsizing. It's not junk.
Right.
It's not unnecessary.
Right. It's a process.
That's right.
So would you say that the process was successful?
Absolutely. It was invaluable. I have recommended you. I mention your name. I don't think people know how or where to find solutions to situations like this. And I think the biggest thing I can say is I want people to know so they can have you interject in the process before it gets to a hospital stay or cataract surgery. So many things fell down for her. But to know that there's companies out there where, it's a very difficult situation. It's an embarrassing situation. But it's behind me now.
Wonderful. Well, listen, I thank you. From the bottom of my heart, I truly thank you. Um, in this process, there are a lot of moving pieces, there are a lot of surprises, but having the family member that loves them, loves the client, is coming from a loving place, makes this process a lot easier. And without you, none of this could have been done. So as much as we were doing what we were doing and we did what we said we were going to do, you, trust me, were the hero. And your aunt made a right decision 20 years ago when she paid for your wedding, though.
Right. Right. Well, it's payback. It's payback.
It's payback.
I'm all set.
So listen, thank you so much again.
And thank you to you and your team.
Very welcome. And I look forward to working with your aunt. We talked about an aftercare program. Obviously, we know that hoarding is something that just doesn't end overnight. And we talked about a routine service that's going to keep us in close proximity with her and make sure that this process continues to be nurturing and progressive. And again, thank you. And to the viewers that watch this show, this was basically all about our home rescue program. Life Cycle Transitions is doing exactly what we just saw today. We're transitioning and changing the lives of people every single day. When something happens, something's going to happen, or something needs to happen, you don't have to just react reactionarily, but you can be proactive. You can think 2, 3, and maybe 4 steps ahead. When we saw this situation, we saw it for an opportunity for us to come in full throttle and make some really legitimate and concise choices that's going to allow her to live comfortably and age gracefully. And I think we did that, and I look forward to many more transitions in the future. Thank you, Mary.
Sounds great. Thank you.